Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And today, boy, Bill, we've got something to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, this is a really good thing as how does truth work in reference to the messaging and regarding marketing a message. I want to get a certain point of view that moves out there. Now, whether it's a business or it's a political point of view that you want to keep some engagement around, the tools of marketing and branding are very important so that the message sticks. They got to get a human being's got to get a message to stick and get a person to enlist on that message. So it doesn't matter the message, just so you can get it to stick. It's very unsettling, but at least we're just facing it the way we face it.
Oh my goodness. And this one is very unsettling. And I'm gonna try to set the table here, and I'll try to keep it short. But there was an article posted on Monday on an admittedly kind of a right-wing website called Revolver, and which that site called a seismic expose, and was very carefully worded, right, that claims that is stating that it is, they were very careful how they say it, but they were trying to say that the FBI played a role in the January 6th attack, meaning a role in orchestrating it, planning it. And the article was very careful and in how it purchased truth. And it kept using questions that it would pose to the reader.
Oh yeah, that's a strong strategy. If you ask a question, and attorneys use that same strategy too in a case of law, they're going to ask a question to a witness, but the question, even if the witness says no, the jury heard the question, and that's the thing that's causing doubt and skepticism inside the person. So, because we want the person not to focus on the answer or whether or not it's true or not, we're trying to get them to focus on the hypothetical. So very, very valuable in business and politics is to watch out for how our integrity can shift between what is really true and what is you're just trying to get the person to believe or follow maybe something that they've been hesitant around. Okay, so with that said, there's more to come. The FBI had a part in it. What kind of part? And the word planning is tough because, well, maybe we might know a thing or two about what the FBI might just want to say about this. So, because they have a part in planning. So let's see what happens next, because this is kind of big, really.
Oh my goodness. So this gets really unsettling, because what the article talks about is many of the indictments of some of the 450, or is it up to 500 now, people who were arrested after the Capitol riot / insurrection. Many of those indictments name in their indictments an unindicted co-conspirator, somebody who has yet to be charged, and they're not naming in that indictment for a particular reason. This article makes the incorrect assumption that an unindicted co-conspirator, or that the unindicted co-conspirators across all of these, are government agents of the FBI, perhaps other agencies. And so they, the reality is, federal agents may very well be installed, undercover in some of these groups like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. But that does not mean the typical legal language used in indictments that an unindicted co-conspirator is a government agent. So this article uses questions very carefully where they say, if it turns out to be true, they use an if question, right? Yes. If it turns out that, so they set the table for doubt by saying that, these unindicted co-conspirators might be government agents. And then if it turns out that, and so it feeds into the confirmation bias of a reader who that's likely to align with their beliefs.
Okay,
right?
so let's set that one up for the listeners language wise. It's that I have a belief that, let's suppose a person has a belief that that there is bad cops or bad FBI people, and another person has the belief that the FBI are following their legal rights or their legal rules to investigate or be in a plant inside an organization. So if you take, like, example, a cartel or something like that, and an FBI person goes into that cartel and is a part of that group, they probably break a law or two while they're in there with the group so that they can be believable, that they are a person that the person says, this person's a part of us because they broke a crime with us. So they're a part of our crime. And the person is gathering evidence, but also might be breaking crimes in order to gather evidence. Now, the person might not be leading it. They're allowing the other people to take the leadership, but they're in there for the quote unquote greater good. Now it gets unsettling right now because some groups think that they're in the right by the belief that they're having. And now you put an FBI person in there. Well, see, the deep state is really watching us, and all of our biases and beliefs and fallacies about the government is going to take over is now true because they put one of their people in our group. So it's really unsettling because the broader truth is not spoken about. And I think the FBI statement actually talked about that. It's like, you don't know the legal ramifications of what we have to go through in order to implant somebody in that group.
Well, the other thing that really feeds into this bill, and I agree with what you're saying about the FBI there, but the other thing that happens is because the FBI, rightly so, does not comment on active investigations or indictments that are going through the justice process, you've got this article making a statement and the FBI not coming out and denying it.
Yeah, they can't do it because it's in process. They can't say, hey, here's our buddy Joe. He was there for 3 years. And what he found out was these 17 things. I know we haven't went to court already yet, and we haven't made that in front of the things. But now that we've came out and said that and we've defended ourselves, we just ruined the court case that we were trying to convict the person that was going to do a bad thing, premeditated, everything from premeditated vandalism to premeditated bank robbery to premeditated murder. We can't use that because we're trying to protect and market and promote to our agency as being good and telling the truth, but you can't tell the truth or get people to tell the truth. Nowadays, you almost got to get them into court, but if you pollute the minds and pollute the atmosphere with a a language of speculation, then truth becomes a casualty, and accountability becomes a casualty too.
Oh my gosh. And this is such a good example. This article is a really good example of how a seed of doubt started to purchase truth, but then it went to a whole nother level. This story caught fire. So Monday it was published on the website, and then it got picked up by Fox News in a big way. And especially the opinion hosts like Tucker Carlson ran with this thing and took what was a seed of doubt and really propagated the story as if it's true to their viewers. He devoted more than 12 minutes to it on his show and made incredible statements. Like he said, FBI operatives were organizing the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, made that as a statement that they were doing it, which of course the article said, you know, again, if it turns out that some of these unindicted co-conspirators were FBI agents, then that would mean they played a role in this, right? The question, when it gets to Fox News and Tucker Carlson, somehow that question ceased to exist at that point.
Yeah, the speculation starts to get gravity, starts to get some groundedness to it, because then you can say, some people are saying, you know, it turns out to be that, or if it turns out to be that, you know, and then they're going to pose that question as a shiny lure to really get somebody that is loyal, that has a bias either on the right side or the left. This is not a right left thing. This is, how do you get people to do something that they don't know anything about? It's like, you know, in the 1990s, when we introduced the concept called designated driver.
Right.
That wasn't a thing. There wasn't a thing called a designated driver, but for the greater good, there was a propagated message, deliberately propagated throughout media, put in TV shows, the message of, this is what a designated driver is. And if you go out with your friends, one of your friends is the one that's driving and they're not going to drink. The other 4 friends are going to have as much fun and be plastered as much, but they're in the passenger seat. The designated driver is the person that's not drinking. That concept, not a concept in the 80s or whenever.
It's certainly in the 70s. I think maybe it started to be 70s. Suggested in the maybe mid 80s, as right. I remember those times. Right. And right. As I was a young adult coming up to drive in the mid to late 80s, we definitely talked about a designated driver. Certainly by the time you got to the 90s, it's like a common thing on a television show like Seinfeld. Somebody would talk about, who's driving? Okay, I'm not drinking. Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, the concept of, I asked the question of Google, and when did designated driver begin? It says 1998, which is a little surprising to me.
Wow, that seems late to me.
That seems late to me, but it's the Wikipedia thing. What is a designated? Why is it important? So the campaign, 88, it launched in late 88.
See that and lines up with my recollection more.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so the focus, the greater good of the messaging was, the truth is that people were dying based on alcoholic related, driving accidents. Well, I want to reduce that. Well, how am I going to reduce that? Is I got to get sober. I cannot go straight at the issue. And this is really a message for both Democrats and marketing executives alike. This is the same thing, because if you are trying to get somebody to do something, trying to get to confront it straight with facts does not work.
And boy, do you need to emphasize that point, Bill. I mean, people need to pay attention. That's huge.
Doesn't work to say, hey, watch this. Every marketer is going to turn over even the marketing gurus in the past will turn over in their grave. Features and benefits are not as valuable as you think they are. They're just not. You can go in and talk as many features and benefits as you like, but unless you're talking about the most important need of the buyer, that they won't overcome it. They're going to have doubt and skepticism about, is this feature and benefit really going to work for me? Or am I just being sold a feature and benefit that won't turn out, or I don't even need that feature and benefit? And that's the unsettling part of this process, Tom, is that truth doesn't, if the person's bias or fallacy is knocking them out, all you need is a little message that has a microcosm of truth in it. Because that's what the initial article said. The initial article says FBI may have been in this, in the things. Well, the thing is yeah, they were in the Capitol building as plants, but that doesn't mean that they were hurting a police officer. It's sort of like having,
or that they planned it. Really, I mean, they may have been there. I mean, these articles aren't even claiming that they were. Well, I guess they were. By the time it got to Tucker Carlson, this thing just, it continued to, it went from a question to what appear to be statements of fact by Tucker Carlson. And this is what really gets so unsettling. He goes from, if it turns out that these unindicted co-conspirators were FBI agents, then it means this other stuff. By the time Tucker Carlson got to it, he says, in quotes, FBI operatives that rioted on January 6th. Another one, the caption at the bottom of the screen as Tucker Carlson was talking read, law enforcement officers participated in January 6th, which to me on its face is, well, of course they did. They were protecting the Capitol. Law enforcement officers did participate in January 6th, but that's not what Tucker Carlson was implying and talking about. He's saying they participated as active rioters.
I really appreciate the lawyers for Fox putting that benign statement underneath, because in a court of law, they can say it was written that way to talk about the police officers that were there that were participating in it. They can do that in a court of law because it's so vague, it's not specific. But even though the host is talking about this, so the bias and the imprint is important. It's sort of like, Tom, on like, and you've developed products in the past. If
right.
you could put a guaranteed on the underneath the label of a certain product, and people say, oh, well, it's guaranteed, or they say money back, or whatever the slogan is underneath it. It doesn't mean the person's going to take advantage or it's going to be real. It is a boost narrative to the belief that this product or service is going to do what you think it's going to do, what you are hoping it's going to do. And the buyer beware, the listener beware, the viewer beware has got to move to the front of our consciousness, because we're getting pelted. The thing I've been railing about is that literally, I'm holding up my cell phone here, is that this thing is a slot machine for a person's dopamine. I mean, I am listening for the latest bell and click or things, or the latest title. And now here, Tucker Carlson or any messaging, or somebody from the left can do very similar things, and go like, hey, I'm not here. Let's do Cuomo for a second. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving. I'm not resigning because of this thing. And guess what? He endured the cycle. Now, whether or not he gets elected the next time around because of that, then there is a problem, with it. Is how do we see or adjust or work with truth? So again,
here's the thing, Bill. I agree with you that to an extent, both sides do this. They're certainly capable of doing it. And there are other things that are completely apolitical, a la the designated driver, campaign that it can purchase truth in this way to achieve an end goal. I got to tell you, Bill, I don't see the Democrats and other news media that are believed to be more left-leaning doing it very well. I really don't. They could be purchasing truth much more so to achieve their goals. I don't think they're as good as the right-wing political and opinion news machine. Am I wrong? Is that a bias on my part that I'm just missing it?
No, you're not. And I'm going to say something neurologically that's very unsettling. Is there's messages that are designed to hit the front part of the brain. They have a lot of logic in them. They have a future thinking piece. And then there's messages that are designed for the limbic part of the brain. All it cares about is create an emotion based on a long-term habit or belief. So limbic messages are ones that moves the body into doubt, skepticism, fight, flight, and freeze. This message up here is, here, come into our store now. You might get the thing that you need. Now, once the door is open, and that's called the lead line. I want the lead line to, and this is for all you marketers out there. I want the lead line to hit the front part of the brain logically, or it's interesting, or it's innovative, or that's new. Then the secondary messages are, does it create a belief or tap into an existing belief? And does it create enough emotion? And this is why innovations, things that make something extraordinary, that could be a game changer, take 10 years to make it to the marketplace, because the belief structure of the buyer is not in the place to buy it. It's the weirdest thing ever. So even though you and I can take a moment as well as and rant about the need for truth not being met and the need for integrity not being met, about the way this is messaged, it's a limbic message. It's like it is a message just to get the fish on the hook. It is a dog treat to get the dog to roll over.
Wow.
It's the, how do I get my a pet bird, a macaw, to talk? Give it a treat. This is really, it's really limbic messaging, and the front part of your brain is screaming like, what the heck is that?
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think I can see some parallels in history of the last 20 years, especially with the messaging around electric vehicles, electric cars, which in the early 2000s, the state of California forced the issue on automakers to have to make so many cars that were zero emissions by a certain time. GM reluctantly bought into it, or at least agreed to it. And then you created the GM EV1, which was wildly popular with the people that used it. But the auto industry conspired to put out messaging that put all sorts of doubt and skepticism into the electric vehicle, and they managed to kill it. And I think we've talked about it before, there's a documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car, which of course now in 2021, about 20 years later, electric cars, especially if you're in California, but I think in many states in the union, are becoming much more common, not only acceptable, but people are realizing there's a lot of benefits of them. And as their prices come down, people are going to go to them, especially when we in California now have over $4 a gallon gas again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The various different economics and things that take place in reference to products and services in a capitalist society. Tom, you and I are not going out to buy CDs anymore.
No,
VHS tapes.
no.
Products come and go. Yeah, the gasoline car, its time is dwindling. How fast how fast the gasoline car dwindles is going to be how quickly, the electric car, the airplane car, if we want to go, the whatever car, or the helicopter car, whatever meets the need for transportation in the Jetson vehicle. Jetson, it's like, those things, so very, very, very interesting stuff.
It really is. And it is really, I mean, that's, I think, what's important. That's why I mentioned the electric car. It really does come back to marketing.
Yeah.
And getting the acceptance of it. And if you use the right marketing message, I think we mentioned the Ford F-150 that announced that it's going electric.
Right.
And
right.
they
That's
did,
right.
They've done all sorts of research, but they also, this was a great marketing demonstration when they had one electric Ford F-150 towing, I think it was 10 double-decker railroad cars full of 42 gasoline F-150s.
That's a great it's a great image right there.
It really is. And so it's, marketing messages, I think, can be definitely used to purchase truth. And it's not necessarily a bad thing in some situations, but
it's not a bad thing if you're trying to get, your job is to get your product or service into the marketplace, and you're trying to get numbers to show up. You have a marketing piece, you have a sales piece, then you have a purchase piece. All those things have got to have a streamline to it. So my marketing message of this electric truck pulling those other trucks is, the belief that you had about the strength of an electric car is now has a new truth to it. The electric truck has strength. Now, that message is going to be accepted by the early adopters. Then the early adopters, the visionaries, are going to go like, well, I'll take that, because my value set is I want to do something about the environment, so I'm going to go this way, and I'm interested in that.
Well, and isn't that the interesting thing here? Because Ford F-150 was not playing the environmental card here.
Nope.
They were playing the power of the vehicle.
That's right.
Because I think that's what people respond to more, or there's certainly the majority of the market that buys pickup trucks today is not concerned as much about the environment as they are their need for utility, power, etc.
It's interesting. I think all of a sudden my creative marketing brain says, gosh, what would it be like if they had the electric vehicle F-150 and the gasoline vehicle F-150, and they had a race against, we are competing against ourselves. And then, but what's the difference? Gas, electric.
Oh, just, yeah. Sure. They should have, the pickup truck games or something, right?
Right. That's right. Instead of the Hunger Games, the pickup.
Or instead of like American Ninja Warrior, where you got people, going through all these physical obstacles, put the trucks through the paces, right?
That's right. And this is how we can make changes in messaging. Is going like, yeah, it's like interesting message, but they're gasping on their message. And that's a part of the problem in our political environment too, is that the message can be popular, but it doesn't. And what happens is that if you don't have a new message, and a message of outrage, regrettably on the right, and there's a message of outrage on the left too, as it's not going fast enough to where I believe it should go. Again, we can just take a breath and realize that you and I are just doing our small part to put a spotlight on the challenges that to get the word out and keep the sheep in your own corral. It's a weird way to say it, but it is definitely a piece that we're going to go we're going to continue to explore and go through as truth takes a little bit of a beating. Took a lot of beating over the last 20, 30 years, and then is really amplified through the internet and phone and all the other ways that we're getting information. So we got more to talk about, Tom.
Boy, we sure do. Okay, Bill. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I hope our listeners did too.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.